Arizona is clearly the best team in the Big 12 right now and will be down the road too, since he's just the next victim of this steamroller.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wildcats. Leif Tulane with you here. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network around. Thank you for making us that. I'm your host, Leif Tulane, your resident college basketball guru, stats nerd, point guard by game, and ball knower by trade. And I'm excited to talk Arizona hoops with you today, just like every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every single game. Today on the show, I will further preview Cincinnati and who does what for them beyond what I did with Jeff Carr of Locked On Reds and former host of the Bearcats show. And I'll talk about the defensive battle, what I foresee in this game, the keys to the game for an Arizona double-digit win, which I expect, and also give you guys some very important thoughts regarding the Big 12 and in specific, the Houston Cougars as they compare to the Arizona Wildcats. So let's dive right in. First things first, every Big 12 game is a real deal game. And though I will tell you pretty confidently, I like Arizona to win this game and comfortably, double digits is my guess. As I said yesterday, every game will have its unique challenge to it because there are more talented athletes and there is a bigger stable of depth that these Big 12 teams can employ that will slow down Arizona to make it so it's not just a demolition every single game. But Cinci's actually one of the more talented teams in the Big 12. They're one of the more talented teams that are far more talented than their ranking in the Big 12 and in the country. They're absolutely desperate, and a desperate wounded animal is a dangerous animal. And they're desperate because it's their best chance to make the tournament is to take out the top dogs. And they already took out number 2, Iowa State, convincingly, actually, on Saturday. So why not try for the biggest shot of it all to take out number 1 Arizona? I will say this. Arizona is very different than Iowa State, and I've been steady on this for a long time when there were debates of who's better and why. Arizona has 8 guys that contribute very routinely. Iowa State has 3, and it makes it too hard to sustain for Iowa State. It makes it easier to game plan and take away one of those guys, and all of a sudden you have a chance. It's hard to take away Arizona's 8. The other thing about Iowa State against Cinci that game had was it was pretty littered with turnovers, and I've not really seen Arizona play without composure. There's been little moments of turnovers. There's games like Abilene Christian that stick out to me with more turnovers than I'd like, but composure has never been lost. And that brings me to Cinci. They want to make you lose composure and drag you into a fight. They are elite, and I mean elite defensively. 7th in Ken Pom, conceding just 1 point more per 100 possessions than do the Arizona Wildcats, who are unbelievably good defensively, as we know. Elite, ranking 2nd in the country, and Cinci's 7th. Because Cinci defends so well, I'm going to give you the answer to what you may ask. What do they do to actually defend so well? Like, what is their scheme? They defend man-to-man, and they pressure teams. It's not necessarily like former Cinci coach, ironically enough, and West Virginia coach, where he'll be better known, Bob Huggins. They had what was called press Virginia. They're not pressing. It's not a designed press, but they will mark you, not in a designed press, 94 feet. They'll funnel you into bigs that can block shots, and they will pry at every ball available on drives. They force every 5th possession, meaning 20% of possessions, to be a turnover, which is top 30 nationally and among all Power 5 teams. And when I say Power 5, I'm including the Big East for basketball. And that is top 8 among Power 5 teams. So Arizona must take care of the basketball. That isn't all Cinci does well on defense. In fact, they do a lot. So listen to this. They hold opponents to an effective field goal percentage, which puts an emphasis on points per shot, so threes matter, but it's not punishing you for taking extra threes, to 47%. And for reference, Arizona on offense shoots an effective field goal percentage of 58%. So what Cinci allows is really a 32% from 3 and 47% from 2. And that is very, very good. And they're one of the biggest teams in the country. They will not be small. Like Arizona may be broader than Cincinnati, but taller, not by much. And they'll believe that they can match up with Arizona mano a mano on the interior and maybe slow them a bit. But that's what they do. And that's all to say fairly concisely that this team can really, really guard. They're big, they're physical, they're disruptive and confident, and maybe most importantly, prideful on defense. Cincinnati has some serious warts, but defensively, they are very good. So the question really becomes, why are they 10-8 and in desperate search of wins, and not just wins, but marquee scalps in the Big 12 Conference? They've already taken out Iowa State. It's because for all the good they do on defense, they have the same number the other way offensively. They shoot extremely poorly from three at 30% and are not great on the inside either. It's not good. And they also turn it over pretty frequently, not as often as they make other teams turn it over. And they cannot make a free throw, shooting they're about 360th in free throws, making 65%. Their pecking order in terms of who's going to do what goes as follows. Day Thomas is their best scorer. He's a ball-in-hand guard who scores nearly 13 a game, but isn't terribly efficient, but he shoots it very, very well from three. Their most talented player, in my opinion, and I believe this is the guy who'll defend Koa Peat, so that'll be a matchup of stars, is Baba Miller. He's from Spain, and about 3 years ago, I believed he was going to be a lottery pick, as did just about everyone. A one-and-done lottery guy going to FSU. But it's been a circuitous journey for him. FSU, Florida Atlantic, now Cinci. But right now he's averaging 13 and 10, and he's a threat from not necessarily the outside, but it's going to be inside oriented, but he can do multiple things to get there. He's not just like a back to the basket guy. I do think it could be tough sledding for him against the size of Arizona, both height and strength in the middle. Mustafa Cham is their 7'2" center, anchors the middle defensively, but he also scores 10 per game and adds 6 boards. And then Jizzle James, the son of Edgerrin James, the NFL Hall of Fame running back for the Indianapolis Colts. He's a dangerous player who's been in and out of the program with Lord knows what. He was removed from the program, comes back, but he adds a spark, and he was very good against Iowa State. The two X factors I've yet to mention are Sean Abayev, a talented 6'8" freshman who is hot and cold. If he shoots well, they're tough to beat. And then the veteran transfer wing, Jalen Celestine, who got hot against Iowa State, and he can really shoot the rock. He did so at Baylor, and he did so at Cal in years prior. But he's someone that, if he gets going, all of a sudden their offensive output and their ceiling really grows. This team only scores 74 per game, despite a fairly high tempo and forcing a lot of runouts. They only concede 66, though, so they're very good on the defensive end. Arizona should do okay defensively, despite those numbers, as I said, because Arizona is going to stop you, and it's pretty hard to stop them. Coming up next, I outline the keys to victory and a double-digit victory and the numbers that correspond. All that and more on Locked On Wildcats. The college football playoff happened and Indiana won, and FanDuel is giving all the customers more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs for NFL as well, because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users got profit boost waiting for them in the app. And here's what you loved about it if you used it, and you'll love about it in future. You'll get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. Ride with the favorite. Or if you see an underdog taking down the champs, if you feel an upset coming, you can play that. And then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays up instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long, so visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every single day. So now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Wildcats with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnWildcats.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. And thank you guys for tuning in. Leif Tulane with you here. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Here are the keys that I see basically creating a clear-cut, I wouldn't call it dominant, but one-sided victory for the Arizona Wildcats. First and foremost, the glass is the most important. Win the glass decisively, and you win this game. Arizona has won all 18 games, of course, but they've won all 18 games on the glass as well. and UCF pushed Arizona to the brink. But as a commentator, as a commenter in the YouTubes, and many commentators have noted, Arizona rebounds well because they have Toe Beawaka and Mo Krivas. The commenter, I'm sorry if I don't remember who said this, but they said that Mo Krivas didn't play much in the second half, and it helped defensively, which caused misses, but that diminished the advantage of the boards because they allowed offensive rebounds without Mo Krivas cleaning up the glass. And I thought that was a very good point in the second half after Arizona was plus 6 or 7 in the first half. The Arizona ended up only just +1 and -5 on the offensive glass. Cinci is even better on the defensive glass than Arizona. They concede just 24% of misses to the opponents. Arizona concedes 25. They're both among the very top of power conferences. But Cincinnati does have a weakness. Despite shooting poorly and not making a lot of shots, they don't offensive rebound very well. And Arizona is elite at it, rebounding nearly 41% of their own misses. So this is where I see the difference and why Arizona should win the glass. Arizona, to me, should win the rebounds by 8 or so due to more offensive rebounds and likely having fewer misses, meaning they'll get more defensive rebounds of the many misses from Cincinnati. I'd also like to see Arizona reach double digits in offensive boards, and that's a challenge because they rebound the ball very well. So this is the challenge I issued Arizona. Get double-digit offensive rebounds, and hopefully you turn those into second chance points. The next key that I have is limit turnovers. And honestly, just win the turnover battle, even if it's +1. Because if you do that, you'll win this game comfortably because they struggle to score in the half court, and the only way I see them winning, and that would be a shock to me, but the only way I see them winning or keeping it very close is if Arizona has a slew of turnovers leading to runouts. And if you can prevent that, you make them score in the half court against what is a very good defense and a defense that will keep them out of the paint. So win the turnovers, and I think win ideally the points off of turnovers. So my goal would be force 15 turnovers, concede fewer than 12, and I'll be curious to see what the three-point battle has in store as both teams take away the paint very well. My guess, because Cincy will have a lot of half-court chances where they're not able to run and score in the paint, I think they'll shoot more threes than they typically do. They score 35% of their total output of threes, but they shoot just 30%. So my goal would be is hold Cincy under their three-point output of 35% of their total points, even if the attempts rise. So make them hit their average number, but but a lesser percentage. Make them live and likely die by the three, like you did against Kansas State, who took 36 threes. They came in expecting to make 10 or 11 in that game. They hit 8, but they went 8 of 36 and shot themselves out of the game. And namely, if you're trying to limit a player, limit Celestine. If he gets hot, that's just gravy for them because you're going to try to score with those guys I mentioned at the top of the pecking order. Celestine and Abayev from deep are the ones that are painful to see hit those shots. Thomas will shoot off the dribble, and if he makes it, kudos to him. But the catch and shoot of Celestine and Abayev must be taken away, as that can spell trouble. Arizona, on the other hand, doesn't need a ton of threes. I've been very clear about this. They've beaten Florida making just 2 threes. They won multiple games in Big 12 play with just 3 threes. Arizona does not need a ton of threes, but I'd like to see 6 or so go down, and namely, Anthony Dell'Orso needs to hit 2. That guy, in my opinion, even though Aristotle shot very well, and you're seeing three-point shooting improvements in other places, he is the best pure shooter on the Arizona Wildcats. He is the guy that if he starts shooting well and Arizona just plays steadily elsewhere, takes Arizona to a new level because that's the 7th best player on the team. And when your 7th best player was formerly a starter and can absolutely shoot the ball, but is shooting poorly, as is Braden Burries for much of the season, those guys start to shoot better. You're getting added weapons from guys that are already consistent forces. So I'd love to see him knock down a couple and get out of a slump. The last key is one you guys know well. It's paint-oriented points, or as my guy Jeff Carr called it in yesterday's show, pop. The key is dominate and pop. And that is paint-oriented points, which is points in the paint plus free throws made. In this game, because Cincinnati only concedes around 66 points per game, it'll be pretty hard to be above 60 in paint-oriented points. But my guess is Arizona will achieve nearly 60, if not 60. So the goal is achieve more than 60. And if they do, they'll win this game because there's no way Cincy can stay close to a team that scores 60 points in the paint plus free throws made and gets anything from the mid-range or the three-point line. So Arizona, for reference, averages 71 pop per game. I think they're around 60. If they get north of 60, they will win this game. And I don't see a way Cincinnati can stay close, barring forcing a million turnovers. I just don't see that happening. So the key, let me reiterate, is score the ball on the inside well, not at your normal rate. This is like an aside to say they're good on defense. You're not going to be as prolific, but do so pretty well, and you'll be in great shape because Cincinnati does not score easily. Arizona is elite defensively. So just be solid. Stay with your recipe. And if you hit extra threes, that's gravy. I think Arizona achieves that. I think they win the glass. My guess is they win by 8 or so on the glass. And the turnover battle, I wouldn't be surprised if Cincinnati wins that just because their game is more banking on forcing turnovers. And I think that'll be like part of the strategy. But you just can't get blown out in the turnover department. Ideally, you win it. And if you can win it, then take advantage. Like this game is the basketball now is about possessions. The more rebounds, the more chances. The more turnovers you force, the fewer chances they have, the more chances you have. And if you can get out and run and score points off of turnovers, that's just icing on the cake because Cincinnati is going to need that to stay in this game. Arizona gets that, and this game's a one-way traffic, and it will be a 20-point win for the Wildcats. Well, coming up next, I'll give you my prediction, what I actually think will happen in this game, as well as a little rant about Arizona and why, though they're number one unanimously, I think they're being disrespected, not just nationally, there's no East Coast bias, but by some of the fans, as well as the Big 12. I think Arizona deserves more praise and more respect, and I'll kind of differentiate them from the Houstons, the Iowa States of the world coming up next. All righty, welcome back. Leif Julien with you here on Locked On Wildcats. I don't see Cincinnati staying close in this unless they shoot exceedingly well. When I say that, I'm saying they have 40% of their points or more coming from the three, and that means that they would shoot well, and Arizona doesn't have a particularly good offensive day. That's the only way it really stays close. Or Arizona has a ton of turnovers, which turn into touchdowns, aka layups. I see neither of those things happening, and therefore I see one-way traffic. Arizona on top. It's not a freeway. It's not going to be a race, and Arizona is just dominant from the get-go, at least in my opinion. But I think this is a game where Arizona wins by 15 or so. I think I said 80-65 on the show I did with Jeff. I'll rock with that if that's the number. What I see happening is Koa Peat is due for a bounce-back game. And when he's played against bigger, more physical teams that pride themselves defensively, and at least with rebounding, like Florida, like TCU, he's dominated. For some reason, I think the bigger and stronger the team, the better Koa Peat plays. So I see Koa pacing the Wildcats, and I also, like I said, I see a Dell'Orso bounce-back spot here. And as for Cinci, my guess is Thomas is going to try to will Cinci into this game by shooting the ball because he shoots 43% from three. But I think his shot diet will be a lot of mid-range shots. I believe he'll have difficult shots and difficulty keeping up with the numbers of the likes of Themis Folks and Mo Odom, who shot a ton of shots to try to propel their teams to beat Arizona to no avail. I also think Baba Miller will be forced to battle with the big fellas and get in foul trouble in defending Koa Peat, and that takes away the most dynamic talent on the Wildcats. So like I said, I see Arizona winning by around 15. Wouldn't be surprised if it's 20. I'd be pretty surprised if Cincinnati really makes this a big-time ball game, especially in McHale. So that's my prediction there. Let me know your guys' thoughts. But here's my take I've been eager to get off my chest. I want to leave you guys with this. Everyone's talking about Houston, and naturally the comparison is who's better. Houston, and I said this in my very first show, Houston deserved the number one spot in the preseason poll for the Big 12. But it's not for what they had. It's for the respect that Kelvin Sampson is coming back, and Kelvin Sampson has built this trajectory of winning. They lost an All-American in LJ Cryer. They lost their figurehead of their program, Juwan Roberts, the winningest player in history. They lost more players. They're adding a freshman in Kingston Flemings who has vastly, vastly outshined the prediction. Many thought he would come off the bench. Uzan has not been very good, and Sharp, who has picked first team, he's been good, but it hasn't been ridiculous. Sinak, a freshman 5-star, and that's a lot of talent, but it hasn't really translated to this like, oh my God, like he's dominating. And so I think they are picked as a tip of the cap to what they had done years past. And I said they deserve that. I still believe they deserve that nod. I thought Arizona's roster was better. I told Parker Ainsworth this on the show, my very first show I did, and it wasn't even mine. It was his show, and he sent it to me, and I posted it as just like, hey, I'm getting going. Check this out. It wasn't my basketball rant, but I want to leave you with this take. Everyone's talking about Houston and saying like, oh, like they're better than Arizona. Arizona's just number one because they have a better resume right now, and Houston's got way more growth potential. I actually don't think it's very close right now. Despite Arizona narrowly beating ASU and Houston drubbing them, I don't think it's close between these two teams. One, Arizona's resume is light years better. Two, Arizona has been better by a lot offensively, better defensively, and they're better at rebounding, which are the staples of Houston's program. Arizona's better at what Houston does very well, and they're better by a ton offensively. Houston, everyone says, well, they've got a ton of freshmen. They got a ton to grow. Well, Arizona plays more freshmen and more minutes. Both will grow, no doubt about it. Like, this is not a slight to Houston. I think Kelvin Sampson's the best coach in the country. And everyone is right that Houston will grow, and they have more growth room because they're not as good as Arizona right now. But I don't think it means Arizona's plateaued and set to not grow. I think they still have a lot of ascendancy left. It's just that they are better right now because they can be better down the road too. And those things are not mutually exclusive. Houston, to me, if I have to break down why I'm lower on them than the consensus, and by the way, before even this Iowa State mini slump where they lost 2 in a row, I've told you all along, I thought Houston was a championship contender when I labeled out my 8 teams that could win it all. If I had a redo, I would eliminate Louisville. But I still wouldn't put Iowa State in there. And that was the big omission according to most people. So I'd probably add Michigan State, someone like that. Anyway, 2 flaws for Houston that no one I've seen has spoken of. Firstly, they lost to a bad Tennessee team. Tennessee is not good this year. This is not the 2 seed you saw last year or the year before that. They lost to a bad Tennessee team. They've been pushed by poor teams such as Syracuse and a few others. They've been pushed by good defensive teams, signaling issues that they have offensively. But the issue offensively that I notice, not just saying the numbers, is that Kingston Flemings, who is awesome, he's great. But Milos Uzan was supposed to be the potential All-American guy, the guy that lifted them to a new level last year. But he's now being forced to play the position that he doesn't play, off the ball, while Flemings is on the ball. And Uzan is uncomfortable doing so. And when Uzan played on the ball, Flemings is uncomfortable. They have a weird tug of war between those guys. And that brings me to the front court. JoJo Tugler is a tremendous defender, perhaps the best in the country. And Sinak is a great rebounder. But they don't comprise a front court that really you can be threatened to see them score 25. Like, you're not getting offensive production out of the front court. Whereas last year, Juwan Roberts was their late game. Let's get the ball inside and see what he does. He's the winningest player in Houston history, and honestly, he was their most clutch, efficient player. Uzan hit a couple floaters. Cryer was an All-American, but Roberts was their go-to guy as well as their emotional leader. I think they have a vacancy in a leadership role. I think their front court doesn't score a ton, and their backcourt, while being deep and very talented with Sharp, Uzan, and of course Flemings, I don't think they fit well together. That is where their growth is to me, that their backcourt will fit better. And once they find something, if they find something, then watch out. They're very good. The difference, though, is last year they were a top 4 team. You could say second best, and I wouldn't fight you too hard because they were the runner-up. But they were a top 4 team in an elite year of college basketball. And they've dropped to a top 6 team in a slightly lesser year in college basketball. And that Houston team was better connected earlier. They had losses, but then they went on a 19-1, or basically I think they went 20-1, including the tournament in the Big 12, and they lost by 1 point in their loss. Houston's going to lose more games this year in the Big 12, and the Big 12 is better, but they're going to lose by more and more frequently will be in tight games. That team was a juggernaut. And I think everyone is assuming it's the same team because Kelvin Sampson gets the best out of a lot of teams. But when you're trying to win a championship, you really need to be as good as that last team. And even then, they came up short. I don't think they're quite there. I think they're better on the defensive side of the ball. I think they were far stronger on the glass, as well as having better offensive chemistry. I have Houston as second in the Big 12, and pretty clearly so. And I've said that since before the season. Like I said, check out that podcast with Parker Ainsworth of Locked On Cougs. We talked about football, but we also talked about basketball in that. And I said Arizona, I think, is a more talented team than Houston. Houston was everyone's shoe-in Final Four pick. And they may well make it because they are as high a floor team as there possibly could be. But Arizona clearly the team to beat in the Big 12. The way I see it is Arizona is one in a tier by themselves. Then it's Houston in a tier of their own. And then honestly, Kansas looks really good out. Darren Peterson's back to like 75% of himself. And they're elevated to the same level as Iowa State, BYU, and Texas Tech. And Texas Tech looks much improved as well. But clearly, Arizona is the team to beat. That is my takeaway. Let me know what you guys think, and thank you for tuning into Locked On Wildcats. Tonight I'll have postcast after Cincinnati game, and when that finishes, hop on. We'll talk about the game, hopefully another win, and we'll discuss that as well as a show tomorrow morning, recapping that game, and of course, further thoughts on the Big 12 landscape. Make sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Wildcats so you get all the latest episodes, and follow me at Leif Tulane on Twitter. And you can talk with me there as opposed to hopping in the comments. I love talking with you there, but I'd love to talk with you in the comments as well. And if Locked On Wildcats made your Spotify Wrapped, just prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Every Dare Club. And just tag our National Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform. We'll drop you a code. Be one of the very first to join the Every Dare Club. Get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to members-only Discord channel. For those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Football. Thanks for tuning in, and bear down.